Hi everybody, how's it going? I wanted to talk to you guys today about shadow bypassing and how to respond to the things that arise in our lives that feel messy or painful with the deepest integrity. So you guys know obviously what spiritual bypassing is. So this is when you feel a little bit of contraction in your system, or there's something that you stumble upon that is sad, feels painful and hard, and the way you respond to it is to use a spiritual concept or an affirmation or just some sort of belief that it doesn't really matter and that it's just we're all spirit anyway. And in that way we push it away and we don't actually deal with it. And I think that obviously this can be very detrimental to us because it keeps the energy of the pain and the resistance alive in our field and in our bodies and in our system. It doesn't actually address it, just to dress it up in pretty language and have kind of an idea about it, right? So recently I had a family member pass away from COVID-19, and I was understandably really shaken by the experience. And I had a friend say to me, well, he just chose this. This was his path, and he chose. All these souls are choosing to die right now. And there's no such thing as death anyway. And, it's a beautiful thing for his soul. He's now liberated. And my response to that in myself was like, wow, that is spiritual bypass, right? Like, I'm a human being who's having a reaction to my family member leaving this earth and leaving behind my family. And what I wanted to hear in that moment was more like, wow, how are you doing? What do you need? Right? This must be really hard. Ouch. Yeah, it's scary, totally. And so that's just an example, of how we do spiritual bypassing sometimes to sort of just try to make it better. And it doesn't make it better. So what I really want to talk about, though, is this idea of shadow bypassing. And here's why. I notice a lot of people right now say things like, the way the world is right now, it's so bad. There's so many problems. There's so much that's so scary, right? And it is definitely true that there are things going on in the world right now, if you watch the news or go on Facebook, that are scary, for sure. But what I feel the shadow bypassing is where people don't actually realize that their putting of attention on it is a move of emotional addiction, where it's not coming from integrity, it's actually coming from a need to create a little bit of drama in the body to release chemicals that have us feel a rush of sensation, a rush of, oh my God, I can't believe that this is happening. And in a culture where, maybe we're feeling a little bit numb or a little bit disconnected from beauty and joy and our aliveness and our excitement for what's possible, it's easy to get stuck in this loop where you go into this cycle of, okay, here is this thing arising into my field that is painful, but instead of really tuning into my alignment with who I am and figuring out what the right relationship is between me and that thing, I'm going to let it stir me. I'm going to let it take my mind and my heart and my body, my somatic experience, my emotions, my neurochemistry, and I'm going to let it take me for this ride. And so the problem is that when we do this a lot and we start to create a habit around it, then when we're not doing it, we don't quite feel good. We kind of feel bored or a little bit apathetic. And our system is scanning our environment for situations, relational dynamics, issues on the news that are going to allow our system to get stirred up again so that we can have a big emotional response again and feel alive again. And I notice this is really widespread right now in the world, and people think that they're justified in this because of the quarantine and the Black Lives Matter movement, and I could go on about the things that are happening in the world right now. And so people think that because there are subjects out there that we can look at that are important to understand and integrate in ourselves, that it's a good reason to get fired up about it. And whenever I say, guys, we need to come back to ourselves first. If we don't have ourselves, if we don't have emotional regulation in our own body and a feeling of presence and connection to the moment, then we don't really have a lot to give. So we might think that we're having an authentic response to what we're putting our attention on, but the truth is that it's actually a loop. It's an energetic and emotional loop, and our response to what we're seeing is our conditioning working and a subconscious reach to feel something. And so the way that the shadow bypassing shows up here is when we say, but this is how I'm feeling, this is what's real, I need to go into the dark, I need to explore what's real. Except what we don't realize is that we're not actually exploring the dark and exploring what's real with the intention of moving it out and through our bodies so that we can be really present to what's really true for us in this moment. And instead, we're allowing our systems to get hijacked by other people's thought forms and other people's energies, and kind of spin out a little bit emotionally, because subconsciously we're wanting to spin out a little bit emotionally, right? And so I see a lot of people doing this. I know there's a Hakomi therapist that I know. Hakomi is a beautiful somatic psychology or therapeutic process. And this woman that I know, she's all about, you have to feel it, you have to allow it, you have to let it go fully through you. And yeah, I have known her for many years now, and maybe over 10 years, and she's always in crisis. She's always feeling the depths of despair. She's always having drama. She's always having things arise where she needs to reach out for help because it's so hard to hold. And what I see there is that there's a cycle of shadow bypassing where it's not moving through the body. It's an addiction to these states of victimhood and intense pain, intense sadness, really feeling these really deep and intense emotional states, which really have the deeper purpose, like I said, of helping us to feel alive and helping us to feel a rush of energy and a rush of those neurochemicals in our body. And so what I understand is that to really feel an emotion, to really feel what's true for us, if we were to completely and 100% surrender to it and not resist our experience and say some spiritual bypassy thing or try to make it better and just surrender fully to the pain in the moment, if we could fully do that, it would really only take about 90 seconds for that energy to move through and out. And then at the end of those 90 seconds, if we didn't go back into our head and reinforce it by thinking about it more to release another wave of feeling. If we could just purely be with that emotional release, it would be 90 seconds. And I think that that's a really important thing to remember, because oftentimes when we're having a really hard time, we can cycle in this, right, for hours, days, even weeks. We can cycle in it. And the reason why we cycle in it is because we're re-triggering with our mind. We're re-triggering with our focus and our attention, the chemicals in our body, by bringing up the feelings and feeling them a little bit, and then going back into our mind, and then feeling the feelings and going back into our mind, and feeling the feelings and going back into our mind. And so we think that there is an emotional release. We think that there is something that we're doing to support our systems that will help the energy flow through, but we're not. We're not. And this is what I call shadow bypassing, right? And I think that it's really important that we don't spiritually bypass, and that we don't shadow bypass. And instead, we become masters of our energetic space, right? Because what I really see is that it's so difficult for me, but it's so difficult for a lot of people I see to be able to focus our attention on any one thing, because there's so much stimulation that we're always this thought, and then that thought, and then that thought, and then that person over there, and that thing over there, and coronavirus, and all of these different things, right, that make our mind just ping all over the place, where our energy field is not our own anymore, right? Our field and our space is not our own. It's being influenced by articles we read on Facebook, and by what our friends are saying, and how our friends are reacting, and how our family members are talking. And so there's like all of this sort of jumbled energy, right? Where if we're really honest with ourselves, we're not actually being with ourselves, right? It's like we wake up in the morning and we think about, oh, that issue, that person, what she said, what he did. And there's all of this energy around us, right? And so in order to not do the spiritual or shadow bypassing thing, we need to learn mastery of our space. And to do mastery of our space means that maybe we need to withdraw our attention from those friends, from Facebook, from the news, from those external thought forms, those external sources that are entering our field and creating all of this energy, right? We need to learn how to say no to it, knowing that we're not going to get a rush. We're not going to get a rush by taking our attention off of it. We're not going to get that body reaction, of like, oh my God, can you believe what she said? Or, oh my God, can you believe that they're not wearing a mask? Or can you believe that they're wearing a mask in their car? So we take our attention off of it and come back to our own space. And there, in our own space, the truth is that it's real quiet and real expansive. And if you can sit with it long enough, there's real bliss. And in that space, you realize that when you say something like, I can't be happy because of all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, or I'm all funky and contracted because of all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, that if you can actually come back to your own space and sit long enough and really connect, you realize that there's nothing going on in the world right now. There's nothing going on in the world right now. The only thing that's going on in the world right now is you sitting and being with yourself and connecting with your own heart and really getting clear about who you are and what you want. And from that space, what I see is that then we have access to take action, and we have access to respond. We have access to embody our gifts and to create from inspiration what we're here to create to benefit the world and to help the different wonky issues that are rampant in the world, right? And I think, people will say, well, I have to watch the news. I have to know what's going on because I don't want to be ignorant. I have to know because I can't just bury my head in the sand and spiritually bypass, right? But what I really see is that the only reason why we need to put our attention on something and learn about that thing, the only reason why that would be helpful is because we want to do something about it, right? If we don't want to do something about it and we just want to sit, that's an indication that we're doing that looping thing, that addiction thing, where we're just sort of trying to get off emotionally on trauma, right? And so if you're addicted to a certain aspect of reality, if you have a fixation on it and it brings up a lot of tension and resistance and anger in you, and you're spending a ton of time researching it and a ton of time talking about it, posting on Facebook about it, and there actually isn't anything that you're doing about it physically, there's no action that you're taking, that is a really good indication that it's actually an emotional addiction and that you would be better served by taking your attention off of it, coming back to yourself, really amplifying up your resource, your inner resource and your field, and remembering what's beautiful about you and about life, and feeling a lot of neutrality in your space, and then remembering what you're here to offer. Because we're not all here to be environmental activists. We're not all here to work in, the really dark realms of politics and stopping some of the darker forces that are going on in the world physically. We're not all here for that. But we all do have gifts, right? And we are all here to uniquely tap into that specific focus and be able to offer that to the world. So, if we're doing that thing where we say, I had this really traumatic thing happen 10 years ago and I need to heal it, right? I need to feel it. I need to release it from my field. I need to, that's what I have to put my attention on. But we've been doing it for 10 years and we're spending a majority of our time doing it. It's a really good indication that we're doing the shadow bypass thing and that we're addicted to these shadow states, right? And from that place, we're just holding ourselves apart from the healing. That beautiful healing where we can really be ourselves and no longer be distracted and hijacked, right? By our pain body. We can't do that if we're continually saying, I have to look at this, I have to look at this, I have to look at this. It's just thought, right? It's just thought. So there's just this beautiful imagining that I have of, the intense passion that I see happening where people are getting really angry and really fired up and really opinionated and fixated and focused on all of these issues, right, out in the world. And if instead all of that passion and energy and opinion could be channeled through our gift, and if every person, if millions of people could be taking action, saying, okay, what action can I take to contribute toward the world that I want to see? Well, then we would be making a lot of change. And we're not making a lot of change through getting emotionally hijacked and living, even if we're not emotionally hijacked, just living in kind of like a low level state of funk or stress where we're kind of a little bit ornery and just a little bit like resistant in the way that we act with people, the way that we act with our kids and our families and our friends, and just kind of like, I don't know why I have a headache. I don't know why I feel lethargic today. I don't know why my stomach kind of is off, or, those like low level stress responses. And I really believe that is a product of shadow bypassing. And what are we bypassing anyway? In spiritual bypass, you're bypassing your feelings, your true feelings. You're bypassing, wow, I feel really hurt, but I'm just going to pretend that I don't feel hurt and not deal with it, which is silly. So what are we bypassing when we do the shadow bypassing? We're bypassing our authentic, present nature by fixating on thought and spinning ourselves out and getting ourselves into addiction, right? We're bypassing our access to our own truth. We're bypassing access to our inner resource and our alignment with who we are. We're bypassing the field of information and guidance that can help us really embody our power and use our gifts to serve, right? We're bypassing the opportunity to be who we really are. And so just wanted to make this little video today to share this concept with you, because I think it's just an important counterbalance to this idea of spiritual bypass, to make sure that we're in integrity, and when we have a feeling arise, and when there's some funky stuff in the world that's going on, we can respond to it in a clean way, where we allow the feeling through 90 seconds, right? We allow it through, but we learn how to stay with our field and how to focus our attention as our number one gift to actually be in service to the whole, right? And if we can't do that, then we can't be in service to the whole. And that's what all of this is about anyway, wanting to make it better, right? So I will leave you guys with this. I love you, and I'm grateful to be having this conversation.